Hello guys, welcome to the very first video of the short animation making course. My name is Dragon Kasai and I am very sorry this video actually came out way longer than I expected it to be. It's just life and work. It's just taken most of my time and focus and prevented me from actually uploading the video to you guys. So I'm very sorry for that, but let's get right into it. I know you guys have been waiting very long for the contents of the book. And the book itself has 5 different chapters. I should say 4 chapters, and the last one, the 5th chapter, is like more like a bonus chapter, like a works digest. And I'm debating on if I should go over that with you guys, depending on how well these videos come out and the interest. If you guys wanted me to actually go translate that and go over those with you. If this is the very first time with Clip Studio Paint, or if like you guys are still like fresh off a beginner, I suggest you guys actually break the program. Now what I mean by that is to go through all the settings, go through all the tools, and pretty much change everything, use it, find out what they do, and so on and so forth after that. In Clip Studio, if you hover your mouse over the tool, it's not showing up on the recording, but yeah, it's not showing up on the recording. But if you hover your mouse over the tool, it will tell you what that tool is. So if I were to hover the mouse over this pen tool, it would say pen, and so on and so forth. And like Clip Studio has like 2 main programs called the Pro and the EX. Now, if you're doing serious animation work, go for the EX version. The reason why is that in the Pro version, you can only create a file or open files that has 24 or less frames. If you try to open a file that has 24 or more frames, in the Pro version, it will open it as a read-only file. You can still use that file as reference, but you cannot edit or change anything within that file. In EX, you can have as many frames that you want. I recommend going lower, or doing smaller cuts, depending on how decent your computer is. And I found out something in this book, in the EX version, that you can actually export timesheets. Something I didn't know too much about. As well as I don't know how to use timesheets just yet, but I thought that was a really nice feature. That means you can have a whole animation production with Clip Studio Paint. In the actual book, the version of Clip Studio is 1.6.3. So that means that the keyframes and the camera additions won't be in that book. Meaning, if you guys are trying to find out more information about that, the book does not go over it, and you should find out more information about that in another source. Pretty much this book is just going over the basics of animation while using Clip Studio Paint. That's the main focus of this book. So let's just get right into it. In chapter 1, it's pretty much just telling you guys the basics of the tools and the functions of Clip Studio Paint EX. So if you guys open your program up for the very first time, your screen should look very similar to mine. You got your tools over here, as well as your sub tools, which is over here. Depending on what tools you select, you have these different tabs over here. So if I could select the pen tool, and inside the pen tool, there's a pen and a marker tool. Alright. Below the sub tool, it's a tool property. And here you can change the settings of the pretty much the brush or the pens. Alright. So this is the brush size, you can change that. This is the opacity, you can change the opacity. Let me make it a little bit bigger. And if you're using a screen tablet, or a tablet that has pen pressure, Clip Studio it's built into that. So right now I'm using a pen tablet, and it has Oops, I dropped my pen. But it has different pen pressures set up to it. You got to change the alliancing and the stabilization. Now the stabilization it pretty much stabilizes your line. So if it's a 0-1 draw using my freehand, it looks decent. But if I go to like 100, for example, if we use a lot of processing power and the line would come out really slowly than it actually is. Just like that. Yeah. I suggest going for 0 or at least like 6, depending on how shaky your hand is. Anything between 0 to 6 is fine, especially when you're doing doga. It's better to have just a free hand at zero stabilization. Below the tool property, it's the brush size. I don't use this too much because I have a shortcut on my keyboard to change the size, but it just changes the size of the brush. That's all it really does. Below that is the color picker. You can change it to pretty much whatever color you want. You can touch it orange, you can touch it green, blue, green, pretty much whatever you want. Alright. To the right of that color picker is what's the timeline, if where the timeline is. If you open up an animation file. And we will get more into the timeline, but this is the main tool that you will be using when you create animation in Clip Studio. So we're going to come back to this very shortly. Over here is the navigator, the layer property, which is like useless. If you don't want to use any of these windows or the panels, you just pull it out and select the X. Like again, it's not going to show up on my screen for some reason, but you can just pull it out and press X. If you want to hide them, these little arrows can hide and unhide. So if it go to the right and you click it, it goes, it's hidden. And if you go to the left, you can unhide it. And if you're trying to find a window that's not here, go to Window and find any window that you want. Let's do color select. Now I popped up over here. You see all these different tabs? You can have different tabs set up. Again, you can pretty much be creative with your workspace as much as possible. It's like Burger King. Have it your way. That was terrible. And right here is the layer. This is also very important in pretty much any file that you use. Your layers and your timeline is pretty much your main 2 panels that you want when you create animation. In my opinion, again, you can do whatever you want. This is my opinion. All right, now that's pretty much the basics and the overview of what these programs do or these tools do. Let's get into the timeline. All right, so the timeline is again your main tool that you want to use, how you want to create your animation. Let's take these off. So over here is pretty much an indicator of where you're at. So in the middle number is your start frame. Okay, it's where you're starting. And the last number over here is your end frame. So this is 60 frames in this timeline, or in this cut, I should say. This number right here is your current frame, whatever frame that you have selected. Over here, you can edit your timeline. This menu will pop up. We'll get into the light table a little bit later. This is a very important tool if you want to do like more traditional animation. You also created a new timeline. Again, I don't think you guys can see the actual pop up that actually just popped up, but pretty much you can create a new timeline and create different cuts into one. All right. Make sure you can zoom in and out of the timeline. These arrows, you can go to start with this arrow. You go to the end with this arrow, and you can go frame by frame or go to the previous and the next frame with these arrows. This is the play button. It will play all the frames in between these blue little indicators. You can also change these indicators position. So if you want to extend, like let's say you have a file that started off with 60 frames and you're working on a project and you realize you need more frames or you need less frames, you can move these frames around however way you want. So you go for 1 to 12 if you wanted to, and you have that to loop. It's very important if you want to loop a certain section or a certain action, similar to how if you were to do traditional animation when you start flipping. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to actually set up shortcuts on your keyboard to go forward and back frames. If you change the end frame outside of your, like if you were to make a new timeline, how would you start it? Let's say I'm going to 72, for example. If I were to go outside the 60th frame, this little gray area here will stop at the 60th frame because that's what the file created. So if I go outside the 60th frame, your background or paper, it's not going to show up. If you want to change that or rearrange that, this little bar-like thing here, you can actually change it. We see the arrow pop up. You can extend or decrease the size of that little box thing. So for this example, the file, or I should say the paper, actually moved. You can also move that selection. There we go. Now I just extended the background in quotations. Just a little quick tidbit. Just something to keep in mind when you create a file and you realize you need more frames. That will happen. It's just what it is. What it is. All right. So let's continue. This right here is the loop play. So if you were to press play, it will loop. If you were to turn that off, it won't loop. It will end at the last frame. Right here is where you create a new animation folder. I would explain the difference between the animation folder and the layer folder, but when you click on this button, it will make a new animation folder. And know how here it made a new track. We call this a track. These are different tracks here. It will just make a new folder with a new layer where you can draw on it. Here you make a new cell. So if you were to select this folder, for example, the first folder that defaults to, make a new cell. Wherever your indicator is highlighted, that's when the new cell is going to be made. So if you're on the 31st cell, it will make it at the 31st cell. Cool little trick when you're making a cell. Let's say you're animating by twos. If you were to make a new cell right now, it will animate it on, or it will make it on ones. But if you were to click the cell and drag it over, after that cell, it will start animated. It will start creating files by twos. Same thing if you were to animate on like threes or fours, it will still default to that. Right now, I just made it like a in between later. We will get into that later on. But you gotta select the file and then make a new cell. If you're on the cell, in between these cells, if you click new cell, it will make that in between. All right, and note the bar is over here. So again, if you want to extend it or move it, we have the freedom to do so. Yeah. All right. So continue moving on. Right here is right here is how you specify cells. So let's say you made a new layer in this layer folder, and it's not here, or you have multiple different files or layers inside the animation folder, and you go here and you make a new cell, and you realize that cell 2 or layer 2 is really your in between. If you click that button, a pop-up should appear. It's not going to show up on my screen, but you can select different layers to make it that cell. And here in the button next is how to delete those cells. Okay. Alright, so let's look at the layers. For example, let me explain the difference between animation folders and layer folders. So let me just delete these layers real quick. To delete layers, you can either A, click and drag, how I do it, or press the delete button and then say yes. Again, it's not popping up on my screen, but that's another way to delete layers. Or just click delete layer when you have your layer is highlighted. Alright, so the difference between layer folders and animation folders is not much of a difference. It's just depending on what is inside your animation folder. So if you were to make it on a new layer folder inside your animation folder, let's move that layer into this folder. Let's make another one. Pretty much anything inside this folder is considered as a single cell. It's good to have a layer folder inside your animation folder. The reason why is these two layers, let's rename this to line and color. So you can have your line art in this layer here. And your color in here. And that will count as a single cell. And when you create another animation folder, you can do the same thing. Alright. And when you create new cells, this is an interesting thing, it's going to create a new line folder with line and color, which is really great. Now, when I first found this out, since it automatically does this, when I first found this out, this right here, when it automatically creates a new cell, you will make sure I have to select the layer. See how it's showing that stop sign symbol here, I can't draw on it because I haven't selected the layer. You just selected the cell picture, I should say, the cell file. Make sure you go inside the folder and select the layer, and then you can draw on it. Alright. Alright, so let's move on. So let me make a couple more cells here. Alright. So I made 3 different cells. So I'm going to draw like a horrible circle there. This right here is what's called an onion skin. Pretty much what the onion skin is, it will show the previous and next frame. So I'm going to draw a circle over here. And we go to the in-between, you'll see the position of both of the previous and next frames. And you can just use that. This is like the base of the light table. The light table will be so much better, and I will show you the reason why later. But at the beginner, you can use the onion skin tool to make your in between. So if we were to draw like an eye or whatever. Pretty much whatever. You can use this onion skin tool to pretty much animate if you wanted to. Only yeah, you can very quickly sketch a frame if you use the onion tool. Alright. And these 2 different tools right here. This one is to add keyframes, and this one is to delete keyframes. This is what I was talking about earlier in the video. How this book is version 1.6.3. These are added in like 1.8 or 1.9. One of those 2. These are the keyframes where you can change your positioning of files and animations, as well as the camera. So the book does not go over these, and this also is included in that. This is how to enable keyframes in this layer. I don't know too much about these, so I'm not gonna go over those. Alright, so pretty much that is your tools. Yeah. Remember, these are tracks. This is your background, which is paper. You can rename something by double clicking the actual title of the file or layer. And pretty much that's there is to know about the timeline. Alright, so let's actually start by making a canvas. So when you go to File and New, this pop-up right here will pop up, and pretty much you can create the purpose of your work. So we got the illustration tab, we got the comic tab, We got like this magazine called Zine right over here. So if you're interested in making like a magazine or a Zine, you can do that in Clip Studio. And then you're gonna have a selection for another selection for more comics, like the advanced section. But right now we're just gonna focus more on the animation tab over here. So the very first thing you see is the file name. You can name the file whatever you want. Right now I'm not gonna name the file anything because I'm not gonna create anything. Then you got your presets. We get a little bit more into this later. And then you got your units. And your units, you have centimeter, millimeter, inches, pixels, and points. I like to use pixel because it's easier to keep track of. So you have your resolution settings right here. In the book, the resolution they like to use is 1920 by 1080. That is your standard 16 by 9 resolution, as well as your color resolution right here. So if you're doing any print work or you're going to print your cells, you change this number to 300 or more, depending on what your production calls for. The book says 144, so I'm going to keep it at 144. This tile safe area is mainly used as like a safety guide or like a safety area, if you will. The book set it up to up and bottom by 54 pixels by left to right, 96 by 96. It's just like a safety net. Below here, it's more towards like camera work. Something that I didn't know until I read the book. The book set up to 1.2 to 1.2. The reference points is the center. Now if you can change the different reference points if you wanted to, but right now I'm going to do the center, and you can change the offset if you wanted to as well. Only you want to. It's mainly used for camera work here. And you also change the different sizes and everything. Below here is the blank space area or the margin area, which pretty much is this area over here outside of the outmost box. That area is not going to show up when you export it, depending on your settings. You're going to get to exporting much later, so just hang on tight for that. Up here is the story information. This is only for EX. So if you have Pro, you probably will not see this mode here. Let me just double check. Yep, this is only for EX. And pretty much this is like your storyboard or your timeline, or your cut. There we go. It's mainly for your cut file, like cut name and stuff. So therefore, like if I'm working on my personal project, this will be like cut 46 or whatever. Like scene and shot. And you can change the position of where that is. You also set the file name automatically. So if you click this folder, don't have this file name changed here. So this will be whatever, or this will be whatever that pops up here. And this is how you like manage or like save or direct where that file is going to be exported at and where the file is going to be saved at. So let's uncheck that. Below here is the timeline. Did you change your timeline settings before you make an animation? So you can change what your timeline is. So this like cut 46. I would probably name this cut 46 just to keep myself organized. You can change the frame rate, and anime they use 24 frames. Most of them use 24 frames per second. This is how you change your playback time, or AKA how long your time you want it to be. So if you change it to 46, you will see 46 individual frame selections. You can also change your scene number here. and your shot number. All right, and the division line right here. This, what, rise this up? No, it doesn't show on my screen. But over here, you see these different lines here. This darker black line in between these lighter black lines show the divisions of them. So if I wanted to do like 4. You show like 4 frames per section. We can change it if you wanted to. And like similar to the set file name, you can automatically change the timeline name to whatever the scenes are. And this is just extra information here. Really, you don't have to worry too much about your image. As well as the book doesn't really talk about it that much either, because it's an older version of this. So this is a newer thing. So I don't know too much about it. And template and shot templates. I'm sorry. Shot templates and cell templates. These are really nice if you're working like in actual animation production, or if you're like creating a production and you want to use the same templates over and over. Like if your company has a template that they send you a file of, they do always want you to have that template. This is what this is going to be used for. Now, in the third part of this video, we're going to go over that more in depth. But for now, that's what that is. Since we're just starting off, we don't want to worry about this just yet. And if you change your settings to the way that's on my screen right now, if it's like the save button over here, you can save it as a preset if you wanted to. I already done that. I called it SAMC. It stands for Short Animation Making Course. That's the file this is the numbers that they use in the book. And you say okay, and it will make that folder or that file. If you already have projects open, these tabs right here will show you different like work. So if you were working for like an illustration, you can actually do that and go to a different tab if you wanted to. Alright, so that's how you make a canvas in Clip Studio Paint, and that's going to be it for this part of the video. I know I've been talking a lot for 30 minutes. I mean, I'm a bit nervous and plus a bit tired, so sorry if my voice seems a little annoying. I'll do my best to work on that, as well as doing my best to work on getting these videos up and running on time, because man, it's been a while. It's been a while since I said since I first started this project, and I'm just now getting to it. But it is what it is. I'm glad it actually started. Go ahead and leave some feedback. I know there's a lot that I can work on, and for future videos, hopefully they're going to be much better quality and stuff, and plus on being on time. Yeah. So if you could, if you guys can DM me if you want to on Discord, or hit me up on the forum, and just give me your feedback. Thank you guys so much, and again, I'm so sorry for the video taking forever. Part 2 is on the way, and that's what's going to go more in depth with shortcuts in the light table. As well, I had to use downloaded materials, and that's going to be it for chapter 1. And then after that, I'm going to do a little tips and tricks kind of video, showing for like what I use, some kind of tools I use for Clip Studio. And when you guys give me more questions about more tools through the forum or in the DMs or in the comment section down below, then we can go more in depth over those as well. And then we're going to hit chapter 2 hopefully next week on next Friday. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.